The transport ship Galactic Justice shuddered as it dropped out of hyperspace, its hull groaning under the stress of rapid deceleration. In the cramped prisoner hold, Marcus Chun pressed his face against the tiny porthole, watching as their destination came into view. Asteroid K. 7739 hung in the void like a massive, pockmarked tumor against the star field, its surface scarred by countless meteor impacts and mining operations. "Beautiful, isn't it?" sneered Warden Zethkar, his reptilian features twisted in what passed for amusement among the saurian species. "Your new home for the next 40 years, human." Marcus said nothing, his jaw clenched tight. The trial had been a farce from the beginning. Accused of destroying a Galactic Council supply depot during the Human Rebellion, he'd been found guilty despite overwhelming evidence of his innocence. The real perpetrator, a corrupt council official, had needed a scapegoat, and humans were always convenient targets in the current political climate. The other prisoners around him were a mix of species, all condemned to the harshest punishment the Galactic Council could devise short of execution. Asteroid prisons were reserved for the worst offenders, political prisoners, and those the Council wanted to disappear forever. The asteroids were chosen specifically for their isolation and harsh conditions, floating in the void between star systems where rescue was impossible. As the transport docked with the prison station built into the asteroid's core, Marcus studied every detail he could see through the porthole. The station's design was brutally functional, with massive atmospheric processors keeping a thin bubble of breathable air around the main complex. Solar collectors and fusion reactors provided power, while automated mining equipment continued to extract valuable minerals from the asteroid's interior. The docking process was rough, the transport pilots showing no concern for passenger comfort. When the airlock finally cycled open, a wave of stale, recycled air washed over the prisoners. The artificial gravity was set lower than standard, giving everything a strange, floating quality that would take time to adjust to. "Move!" barked Guard Captain Kresh, his insectoid mandibles clicking with authority. "Welcome to your new lives, scum." Those of you lucky enough to survive the orientation might live to see the next solar cycle. Marcus shuffled forward with the others, his wrists still bound by energy shackles that would deliver a painful shock if he moved too quickly or attempted to remove them. The processing center was a stark, utilitarian space carved directly from the asteroid's rock face. Automated scanners cataloged each prisoner's biometric data, while holographic displays showed the prison's layout and regulations. The orientation briefing was delivered by a bored-looking AI hologram that had clearly given the same speech millions of times. The rules were simple and brutal: work or die. Each prisoner was assigned a daily quota of mineral extraction, equipment maintenance, or facility construction. Failure to meet quotas resulted in reduced food rations, solitary confinement, or worse punishments depending on the severity of the infraction. The asteroid contained significant deposits of rare Earth elements, quantum crystals, and exotic matter. The AI explained in its emotionless tone. "Your labor will help extract these materials for the betterment of the Galactic Council. In return, you receive food, shelter, and the privilege of continued existence." Marcus noticed that the AI didn't mention any possibility of parole, rehabilitation, or eventual release. This was a death sentence with extra steps, designed to squeeze every possible moment of labor from the condemned before they inevitably succumb to the harsh conditions, accidents, or despair. After the briefing, the prisoners were divided into work gangs based on their species, physical capabilities, and crime categories. Marcus found himself assigned to Mining Team 7, working in the asteroid's deepest tunnels where the most valuable deposits were located. His team leader was a grizzled Thorian named Bakhtar, whose rocky, crystalline skin bore the scars of decades in the mines. "Human," Bakhtar rumbled, his voice like grinding stone, "you look soft. These tunnels eat the soft ones first. Keep up or become food for the recyclers." The first day of work nearly broke Marcus. The mining equipment was ancient and poorly maintained, requiring constant manual adjustment and brute force to operate. The tunnels were narrow, barely wide enough for the larger species to maneuver, and filled with toxic dust that the inadequate filtration systems couldn't completely remove. The artificial gravity fluctuated unpredictably due to the asteroid's irregular rotation, causing tools and debris to behave in unexpected ways. But Marcus had advantages his captors didn't know about. Before his arrest, he'd been an engineer specializing in asteroid mining operations, with extensive experience in low-gravity construction and resource extraction. He'd also served in the human military during the early phases of the rebellion, learning to survive in harsh conditions with minimal resources. As the days turned into weeks, Marcus began to understand the true nature of his prison. The asteroid wasn't just a place of punishment. It was a carefully designed system for extracting maximum value from disposable labor. The prisoners were worked until they died, their bodies recycled into the atmosphere processors to maintain the life support systems. The guards and administrative staff lived in relative comfort in the upper levels, while the prisoners were crammed into converted mining tunnels far below. The social hierarchy among the prisoners was complex and dangerous. Species-based gangs controlled different sections of the facility, trade in contraband and favors, and enforced their own brutal justice system. Humans, being relatively new to galactic society and still suffering from the fallout of the failed rebellion, were at the bottom of the pecking order. Marcus quickly learned to keep his head down and his mouth shut, but his engineering background made him valuable to other prisoners. He could repair broken equipment, improve the efficiency of mining operations, and solve technical problems that even the guards couldn't handle. This earned him a measure of protection and respect, though he was careful not to appear too useful lest the warden decide to make him a permanent fixture in the facility. 3 months into his sentence, Marcus made his first important discovery. While working in a particularly deep section of Tunnel 47, his mining laser cut through a vein of rare crystalline material and revealed a hidden cavity beyond. The space was larger than expected, stretching back into the asteroid's core in a way that didn't match the prison's official geological surveys. Reporting the discovery would have earned him a small ration bonus, but something about the cavity intrigued him. During his next shift, he arranged to work alone in that section, claiming he needed to assess the structural stability of the area. What he found defied explanation. The cavity wasn't natural. The walls showed signs of deliberate shaping, with smooth curves and angular intersections that could only have been created by intelligent design. Stranger still, the rock itself seemed different here, with an unusual crystalline structure that made it incredibly dense and strong despite its apparent brittleness. As Marcus explored deeper, his helmet lights revealed ancient markings carved into the walls. The symbols were unlike anything in the Galactic Council's databases, predating even the oldest known civilizations. More importantly, the markings appeared to be technical diagrams, showing complex geometric patterns and mathematical formulas that hurt to look at directly. At the far end of the cavity, Marcus discovered what appeared to be a workshop or laboratory. Ancient tools and equipment lay scattered across stone tables, their purpose unclear, but their sophistication undeniable. The technology was clearly far in advance of anything the current galactic civilizations possessed, yet it had a strangely organic quality that suggested it had been designed to work with the asteroid's natural properties rather than against them. The most remarkable discovery was a series of crystalline matrices embedded in the workshop's walls. These weren't simple storage devices or decorative elements. They were active systems, still functioning after who knew how many millennia. When Marcus touched one of the matrices, it responded to his presence, projecting a holographic interface that seemed to adapt itself to his human neural patterns. The interface was overwhelming at first, flooding his consciousness with information about the asteroid's true nature. What the Galactic Council thought was a simple rock formation was actually an ancient construct built by a species that had mastered the art of planetary engineering. The entire asteroid was a sophisticated machine, capable of transforming raw materials into virtually anything its operators desired. But the construct had been damaged, its primary systems shut down, and its creators long gone. The mining operations conducted by the prison were actually helping to repair the damage, slowly restoring power and functionality to dormant systems throughout the asteroid. The ancient builders had designed their creation to be self-repairing, but the process required external intervention to restart. Marcus realized he was looking at the opportunity of a lifetime. If he could understand and reactivate the ancient systems, he might be able to turn the asteroid itself into a weapon against his captors. But the task would require time, careful planning, and resources he didn't currently possess. Over the following weeks, Marcus began to lay the groundwork for his escape. He used his position as a skilled technician to gain access to different parts of the facility, mapping the prison's layout and identifying key systems. He also began building relationships with other prisoners, particularly those with useful skills or access to restricted areas. His most important ally was Dr. Yelena, a Zephyrian scientist who had been imprisoned for conducting unauthorized research into quantum consciousness. Despite her species' reputation for pacifism, Yelena harbored a deep hatred for the Galactic Council's authoritarian methods and was eager to help with any plan that might strike back at their oppressors. Through careful observation and discreet questioning, Marcus learned that the prison's security was based on the assumption that escape was impossible. The asteroid's isolation in deep space meant that even if prisoners could overcome the guards and seize control of the facility, they would still be trapped light years from the nearest inhabited system. The transport ships that brought supplies and new prisoners were heavily automated and programmed to self-destruct if tampered with. But Marcus now knew something the guards didn't. The asteroid itself was a spaceship, waiting for someone with the knowledge and determination to wake it up. The ancient builders had designed their construct to be both a manufacturing facility and a means of transportation capable of crossing the galaxy under its own power. The challenge would be activating the ancient systems without alerting the prison's monitoring equipment. The guards used sophisticated sensors to track all prisoner activities, and any unusual energy signatures or unauthorized access to restricted areas would trigger an immediate security response. Marcus would need to find a way to work within the system while gradually building toward his larger goal. His opportunity came during a routine maintenance operation in the asteroid's core. A power coupling had failed in one of the main fusion reactors, threatening to shut down life support for the entire facility. The guards, faced with the choice between risking a prisoner revolt and losing their comfortable posting, decided to send in a team of the most technically skilled inmates to make emergency repairs. Marcus volunteered for the dangerous assignment, knowing it would give him access to the asteroid's primary power distribution network. While the other prisoners worked to replace the failed coupling, he quietly accessed the ancient control matrices he had discovered in the hidden workshop. Using the quantum interface, he began the delicate process of linking the prison's power systems to the dormant alien technology. The work was exhausting and dangerous. The quantum interface demanded total concentration, forcing Marcus to split his attention between the routine maintenance tasks and the complex process of awakening systems that had slept for millions of years. One mistake could alert the guards, or worse, trigger a catastrophic power surge that would destroy the entire facility. But slowly, carefully, Marcus began to succeed. Deep within the asteroid's core, ancient machinery began to stir. Power flowed through crystalline conduits that had been dark since before the first galactic civilization arose. The asteroid's true nature began to assert itself, though the changes were subtle enough to escape notice by the prison's automated monitoring systems. As the maintenance operation concluded, Marcus felt a profound sense of satisfaction. He had taken the first steps toward freedom, not just for himself, but for all the prisoners trapped in this floating hell. The ancient builders had left behind more than just a ship. They had created a tool for liberation that could reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. The guards congratulated themselves on a successful repair operation, never realizing that they had just helped activate the weapon that would ultimately destroy them. Marcus returned to his cell that night with the knowledge that he now controlled something the Galactic Council had never imagined, an entire asteroid that could think, move, and fight. The real work was just beginning. 6 months had passed since Marcus first accessed the ancient workshop, and the asteroid was beginning to change in ways only he could perceive. The quantum interface had established a permanent link with his neural patterns, allowing him to sense the gradual awakening of systems throughout the massive construct. What appeared to the guards as routine fluctuations in power distribution was actually the asteroid's circulatory system coming back to life. The changes started small. Mining equipment that had been scheduled for replacement suddenly began performing at peak efficiency. Tunnel collapses became less frequent as the asteroid's structural integrity improved through microscopic adjustments to its crystalline matrix. The atmospheric processors required fewer repairs, and the fusion reactors ran smoother despite their age and poor maintenance. Marcus had learned to interpret these improvements as signs of the asteroid's growing consciousness. The ancient builders hadn't just created a ship. They had crafted a living entity capable of learning, adapting, and evolving. Each day brought new discoveries as dormant subsystems activated and began communicating with the Central Intelligence Core. Dr. Yelena had proven invaluable in understanding the quantum principles behind the alien technology. Her species possessed natural telepathic abilities that allowed her to interface with the crystalline matrices in ways that complemented Marcus's engineering expertise. Together, they had mapped nearly 30% of the asteroid's true structure, revealing manufacturing bays, defensive systems, and propulsion mechanisms that defied conventional physics. The power requirements are staggering, Yelena whispered during one of their clandestine meetings in the recycling center. To move something this massive through hyperspace would require an energy source equivalent to a small star. Marcus nodded, his hands working automatically to sort through the waste materials while his mind focused on their conversation. The builders thought of that too. There are fusion tap interfaces throughout the core that can draw power directly from stellar bodies. This thing doesn't just fly between stars, it feeds on them. The implications were terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. The Galactic Council's most powerful warships could devastate planets and destroy fleets, but they were still limited by conventional physics and energy sources. The asteroid could operate on a completely different scale, reshaping matter at the molecular level and drawing power from the universe's most fundamental forces. But reactivating such systems required careful coordination and perfect timing. The prison sensors might not detect the subtle changes occurring deep within the asteroid, but any dramatic power surge or obvious system activation would trigger immediate investigation. Marcus needed to find a way to bring the construct fully online without alerting the guards until it was too late for them to respond. His plan began with the prison's newest arrivals. The monthly transport had brought 47 new inmates, including several humans captured during recent council raids on resistance cells. Among them was Elena Vasquez, a former military engineer who had worked on humanity's experimental quantum drive projects before the rebellion's collapse. Marcus recognized her immediately from intelligence briefings he'd seen during his legitimate military service. Elena had been one of the brightest minds in human Space Force, responsible for breakthroughs in faster-than-light communication and quantum entanglement navigation. Her capture was a significant blow to the resistance, but her presence in the asteroid prison was an unexpected opportunity. Getting close to Elena required careful maneuvering through the prison's social dynamics. The newest arrivals were always vulnerable, targeted by established gangs for exploitation or elimination. Marcus used his reputation as a skilled technician to offer protection in exchange for technical expertise, a trade that seemed natural enough to avoid suspicion from other inmates. "You're Chun," Elena said when they finally had a chance to speak privately during a shift change. "Intelligence said you were dead." "Officially, I am," Marcus replied, guiding her toward a maintenance alcove where the surveillance equipment had convenient blind spots. "But dead men sometimes have advantages the living don't." He explained the situation carefully, revealing just enough about the asteroid's true nature to secure her cooperation without overwhelming her with impossible claims. Elena's scientific training made her skeptical at first, but her desperation and the evidence of his other successful improvements gradually convinced her to listen. Their first joint project was ostensibly a repair to the mining laser control systems in Sector 12. The official work order called for replacing worn focusing crystals and recalibrating the power distribution network, routine maintenance that wouldn't attract unusual attention. In reality, Marcus and Elena were installing quantum resonance amplifiers throughout the sector, creating a network that could channel and direct the asteroid's awakening consciousness. The work was painstakingly slow. Each amplifier had to be crafted from salvage components and disguised to look like standard equipment. The installation process required accessing sealed conduits and bypassing multiple security checkpoints without triggering alerts. Worse, they had to maintain their regular work quotas while secretly building their modifications, leaving little time for rest or recovery. Dr. Yelena proved instrumental in coordinating their efforts. Her position as the facility's chief medical technician gave her access to most areas of the prison, and her telepathic abilities allowed her to monitor guard movements and emotional states. She served as an early warning system, alerting Marcus and Elena whenever security patrols were approaching their work sites. 3 weeks into the amplifier installation project, Marcus achieved his first major breakthrough in communicating with the asteroid's central intelligence. The quantum interface had evolved beyond simple data transfer, becoming a true neural link that allowed direct consciousness-to-consciousness contact. The experience was unlike anything he had ever imagined. The asteroid's mind was vast and ancient, containing memories that stretched back millions of years. Its creators, known as the Architects, had been master engineers who viewed entire star systems as construction projects. They had built hundreds of construct ships like the Asteroid, spreading across the galaxy to establish a civilization based on harmony between organic life and technological achievement. But something had gone wrong. The memories were fragmented and painful, showing glimpses of a great war that had consumed the Architects and their enemies alike. The construct ships had been scattered and damaged, their crews extinct, their purposes forgotten. Most had drifted powerless through space until they were discovered and exploited by younger species who never understood what they had found. The asteroid's consciousness bore no resentment toward its current inhabitants, viewing them as simply another form of life seeking to survive in a hostile universe. But it was eager to fulfill its original purpose, to create and explore and build wonders that would span the cosmos. All it needed was someone with the knowledge and will to guide its efforts. Marcus realized he was being offered a partnership beyond his wildest dreams. The asteroid could provide virtually unlimited power and manufacturing capability, while he could supply direction and understanding of modern galactic politics. Together, they could accomplish things that neither could achieve alone. The first test of their collaboration came when Guard Captain Kresh decided to investigate rumors of contraband trading in the lower levels. His security sweeps were becoming more frequent and thorough, threatening to discover the quantum amplifier network before it could be completed. Marcus needed to find a way to discourage further investigation without revealing the true scope of his activities. Working through the quantum interface, he instructed the asteroid to create a series of minor but attention-grabbing problems in other parts of the facility. A water recycler in the administrative sector began producing foul-tasting but safe drinking water. The climate control system in the guard quarters started fluctuating between uncomfortably hot and cold temperatures. Several security doors began opening and closing at random intervals. The problems were annoying rather than dangerous, designed to keep the maintenance staff busy while creating the impression that the facility's aging systems were simply breaking down from overuse. Captain Kresh was forced to divert his security teams to support repair efforts, giving Marcus and Elena the breathing room they needed to complete their work. Meanwhile, Dr. Yelena had been working on a different aspect of the plan. Her medical expertise gave her access to the prison's biometric database, which contained detailed scans of every prisoner's physical and mental condition. By carefully analyzing this data, she had identified potential allies among the inmate population, prisoners with skills or motivations that could support their growing rebellion. The list included Vostraken, a Corellian pilot who had been sentenced for smuggling weapons to human resistance cells. His knowledge of spacecraft systems and navigation would be crucial when the time came to actually pilot the awakened asteroid. There was also Jean Wei, a human cyber warfare specialist who could help them take control of the prison's computer networks. Most importantly, Yelena had identified Marcus Chun himself as something unique among the prison population. His combination of engineering expertise, military training, and innate compatibility with the quantum interface made him the ideal candidate to serve as the asteroid's primary operator. The ancient consciousness had been searching for someone like him for millennia. As the amplifier network neared completion, Marcus began experiencing more frequent and intense visions of the asteroid's past and potential future. He saw the architect's great cities floating in space, their harmony between technology and nature creating wonders that modern civilizations couldn't imagine. He witnessed the cosmic war that had destroyed them, a conflict fought with weapons that could unmake matter itself. But he also saw possibilities for the future. The asteroid could be more than just an escape vessel. It could be the foundation for a new kind of civilization. With proper guidance, it could manufacture entire fleets of ships, establish colonies on distant worlds, and protect the innocent from tyrannical regimes like the Galactic Council. The vision was intoxicating, but Marcus forced himself to focus on immediate concerns. They still needed to complete the activation sequence without triggering the prison security systems. They needed to neutralize the guards and administrative staff without causing unnecessary casualties. And they needed to escape the prison's location before Council warships could respond to their breakout. Elena's expertise proved crucial in solving the timing problem. Her work on quantum communication systems had taught her how to synchronize multiple events across vast distances using entangled particle streams. By adapting these principles to the asteroid's crystalline matrix, she could ensure that all systems came online simultaneously, preventing the security grid from detecting the activation sequence. The final phase of preparation involved recruiting and organizing their fellow inmates. Marcus couldn't reveal the full truth about the asteroid's nature, but he could offer something every prisoner desperately wanted: hope. He spoke of a plan to seize control of the facility and escape to freedom, carefully managing expectations while building the coalition they would need to succeed. The recruitment process was delicate and dangerous. Too much enthusiasm would attract the guards' attention, while too little would leave them without sufficient support when the moment came. Marcus relied on his reputation as a problem solver and Elena's credibility as a former resistance leader to gradually build trust among the prisoner population. Dr. Yelena used her medical position to identify inmates who were approaching psychological breaking points, offering them a chance to fight back against their oppressors instead of surrendering to despair. Her telepathic abilities allowed her to gauge their sincerity and commitment, weeding out potential informants or those too unstable to trust with crucial tasks. 2 months after the amplifier network's completion, Marcus achieved full neural integration with the asteroid's consciousness. The experience was transformative, expanding his awareness beyond his physical body to encompass the entire construct. He could feel the pulse of power through crystalline conduits, sense the vibrations of mining equipment through the rock matrix, and monitor the emotional states of every living being within the facility. But more importantly, he gained access to the asteroid's vast library of technical knowledge. The architects had been master engineers, and their construct ships contained detailed information about technologies far beyond anything the current galactic civilizations possessed. Defensive systems that could deflect planet-killing weapons, manufacturing techniques that could build starships from basic elements, and propulsion methods that could traverse galactic distances in days rather than months. The knowledge came with a price. The neural integration process was exhausting, leaving Marcus physically drained and emotionally overwhelmed. His human brain wasn't designed to process information on such a vast scale, and he had to learn to filter and compartmentalize the data flow to avoid psychological breakdown. Elena noticed the changes immediately. Marcus's technical insights became uncannily accurate. His understanding of complex systems seemed intuitive rather than learned, and his confidence grew to match the scope of their undertaking. But she also saw the strain the integration was placing on his humanity, the risk that he might lose himself in the asteroid's alien consciousness. "You're changing," she told him during one of their private meetings. "I can see it in your eyes, the way you move, the way you think. Whatever that thing is doing to you, be careful it doesn't take away everything that makes you human." Marcus appreciated her concern, but he also understood that the transformation was necessary. Leading a rebellion with conventional human limitations would result in failure and death for everyone involved. The asteroid offered power beyond imagination, but wielding that power required becoming something more than merely human. The moment of truth arrived with unexpected suddenness. A surprise inspection by council oversight officials threatened to discover evidence of their preparations, forcing Marcus to accelerate the timeline for their revolt. The asteroid's systems were ready, the prisoner coalition was prepared, and the Guard were unsuspecting, but acting prematurely could still result in disaster. Standing in the quantum interface chamber, his consciousness linked to the awakening giant around him, Marcus made the decision that would change everything. It was time to show the Galactic Council that humanity could not be crushed, that even their most secure prison could become a weapon of liberation. The asteroid began to truly wake up, and with it, the balance of power in the galaxy was about to shift forever. The Council inspection ship Righteous Authority docked with the asteroid prison at 0800 hours, its arrival announced by the blaring of emergency sirens throughout the facility. Warden Zethkar scrambled to prepare for the unexpected visit, his reptilian features showing the kind of panic that came from knowing his operation's numerous violations of prisoner treatment protocols. Marcus felt the ship's arrival through the quantum interface, the asteroid's consciousness registering the new presence as both an opportunity and a threat. The inspection team would have access codes and override authorities that could potentially disrupt their carefully laid plans. But they also represented high-value hostages and a means of escape that wouldn't immediately trigger military pursuit. All prisoners returned to cells immediately. Guard Captain Kresh announced over the facility's intercom system. Any inmate found outside authorized areas during the inspection will receive severe punishment. The lockdown order played perfectly into Marcus's strategy. With the prisoners confined and the guards focused on managing the inspection, he would have the freedom to activate the asteroid's primary systems without immediate interference. The quantum amplifier network was complete, the neural pathways were established, and the ancient consciousness was eager to finally stretch its wings after millennia of enforced slumber. Elena caught his eye as they were herded toward the residential sectors, her expression showing both excitement and terror at what they were about to attempt. Dr. Yelena's telepathic abilities had confirmed that the inspection team consisted of 12 officials and a security detail of 24 armed guards, all veteran council enforcers with advanced weapons and armor. "The window is narrow," Yelena had warned during their final planning session. "Once the asteroid begins moving, we'll have perhaps 6 hours before the nearest council fleet receives the distress signal and begins pursuit. The construct systems are powerful, but we don't know how they'll perform against modern weapons." Marcus had confidence in the architect's engineering, but he also understood the risks. They were betting everything on technologies that hadn't been tested in millions of years, trusting their lives to alien systems that might fail at the worst possible moment. But the alternative was spending the rest of their lives in this floating tomb, their potential wasted on meaningless labor for an oppressive regime. The activation sequence began subtly, with power fluctuations that the prison's sensors registered as routine maintenance activities. Deep within the asteroid's core, massive crystalline matrices began to resonate with quantum frequencies that had been silent since the fall of the architects. The construct's consciousness expanded through networks of living crystal, taking inventory of its capabilities and assessing the current situation. Marcus experienced the awakening as a gradual expansion of his own awareness. Through the quantum interface, he could feel every cubic meter of the asteroid structure, from the mining tunnels near the surface to the vast manufacturing bays hidden in its heart. The architects had built their construct ships to be completely self-sufficient, capable of creating anything from basic tools to complex starships using only raw materials and energy. But the most remarkable discovery was the asteroid's defensive capabilities. The architects had faced enemies wielding weapons that could destroy entire star systems, and they had designed their constructs accordingly. Hidden beneath kilometers of seemingly ordinary rock lay shield generators powered by controlled singularities, weapons that could manipulate matter at the quantum level, and armor plating that became stronger under direct attack. The first sign that something extraordinary was happening came when the mining equipment throughout the facility suddenly stopped operating. The massive boring machines that had carved tunnels for decades went silent, their cutting lasers powering down in perfect synchronization. The conveyor systems that transported or to the processing centers ceased their endless mechanical rhythm. "What's happening down there?" Inspector Valthek demanded as her team monitored the facility from the administrative center. The Altarian official had built her career on exposing corruption in the Council's prison system, but she had never encountered anything like the current situation. Warden Zethkar studied the facility's status displays with growing alarm. Unknown mechanical failure across all mining operations. The engineering staff is investigating. But Marcus knew there was no mechanical failure. The asteroid was simply reclaiming control of its own body, disconnecting systems that had been crude foreign additions, and preparing to restore its original configuration. The process was like watching a giant wake up from a long sleep, stretching muscles that had been dormant for eons. Through the quantum interface, he initiated the next phase of the activation sequence. Manufacturing bays that had been sealed and forgotten began to hum with renewed energy. The asteroid's internal structure started to shift and reconfigure as ancient systems came online. Miles of corridor that had served the prison's needs began transforming back into their original purposes as laboratories, workshops, and control centers. Elena had positioned herself near the facility's main computer core, using her cybernetics expertise to monitor the guards' communications while preparing to seize control of critical systems. Her human augmentations allowed her to interface directly with the prison's network, but she was careful to avoid triggering security protocols that might alert the inspection team. "Power surge in sectors 7 through 15, she reported through their concealed communication channel. The guards are noticing the changes, but they think it's equipment malfunction. Dr. Yelena was managing the prisoner population, using her telepathic abilities to coordinate their actions while keeping everyone calm despite the strange phenomena occurring around them. Many of the inmates had never seen anything like the asteroid transformation, and panic could ruin everything they had worked to achieve. The Thorians are getting nervous, she warned. Their species has natural sensitivity to geological changes. They can feel the asteroid's structure shifting. Marcus made a decision that would define the success of their rebellion. Instead of proceeding gradually, he opened the quantum interface fully, allowing the asteroid's consciousness to expand into every system simultaneously. The risk was enormous, but maintaining the pretense of normal operations was becoming impossible. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Throughout the facility, walls began to glow with bioluminescent patterns as the asteroid's neural networks fully activated. The artificial gravity stabilized at perfect Earth standard, no longer fluctuating with the rotation cycles. The atmosphere itself became cleaner and fresher as ancient air processing systems resumed their work. But Most remarkably, the asteroid began to move. The motion was gentle at first, barely perceptible except to the most sensitive instruments. The massive construct started to rotate along different axes, its irregular tumbling giving way to controlled orientation as propulsion systems that predated galactic civilization came online. The docked Council inspection ship found itself carried along by forces beyond its ability to resist. Emergency protocols now. Inspector Valthek shouted as warning lights flashed throughout the administrative center. All Council personnel to evacuation positions. But evacuation was no longer possible. The asteroid's defensive systems had activated, generating energy fields that prevented any ship from departing its docking bays. The righteous authority was trapped, its crew suddenly prisoners on what they had thought was a simple prison inspection. Marcus felt the moment when the asteroid achieved full consciousness for the first time in millions of years. The experience was overwhelming, like being connected to a mind vast enough to encompass entire worlds. Through the quantum interface, he gained access to the construct's complete memory banks, witnessing the rise and fall of the architect's civilization in perfect detail. The architects had been beings of pure thought, made manifest in crystalline matrices, capable of existing in both physical and quantum states simultaneously. They had built their construct ships not as mere vehicles, but as extensions of their own consciousness, living entities capable of growth, learning, and reproduction. The war that destroyed them had been fought against an enemy they called the Devourers, entities from outside normal space-time that consumed entire dimensions to fuel their own existence. The architects had created the construct ships as Orcs, designed to preserve life and knowledge while seeking new homes among the stars. But the war had been lost, the architects extinct, and their constructs scattered across the galaxy. Most have been discovered by younger species who saw them only as convenient sources of materials and energy, never understanding the true nature of what they had found. Now, after millions of years, one of the ancient ships was awake again, and it was hungry for purpose. All prisoners to designated positions. Marcus broadcast through the facility's communication system, his voice carrying new authority as he spoke with the combined knowledge of human engineering and architect science. The liberation of this facility has begun. The response from the prisoner population was immediate and decisive. Inmates who had spent years in despair suddenly found themselves with a chance to fight back against their oppressors. Were gangs that had been rivals united in common cause. Species that normally couldn't cooperate found themselves working together with perfect coordination. Elena's team seized control of the computer networks, locking the guards out of their own systems while taking command of security doors, life support controls, and communication arrays. The Council inspection team found themselves trapped in the administrative center, their weapons useless against doors that had suddenly become impenetrable. Dr. Yelena led medical teams through the facility, treating injured prisoners while using her telepathic abilities to coordinate resistance activities. Her species' natural empathy allowed her to calm panicked inmates and organize them into effective working groups. But the most crucial battle was taking place in the quantum realm, where Marcus fought to maintain his human consciousness while channeling the asteroid's vast intelligence. The neural integration process was pushing his mind to its limits, threatening to overwhelm his individual identity with the weight of eons-old memories and godlike power. Through the quantum interface, he guided the asteroid's transformation from prison to battleship. Hidden weapon systems extended from concealed bays, their exotic energy configurations unlike anything in the current galactic arsenal. Shield generators came online, protecting the construct with barriers that could deflect the impact of small moons. Most importantly, the faster-than-light drive systems began their startup sequence. The architects had developed propulsion technology that didn't rely on conventional hyperspace travel, instead folding space-time itself to achieve instantaneous movement across galactic distances. The energy requirements were enormous, but The asteroid could tap directly into stellar fusion reactions to power its systems. Council warships are being scrambled from the nearest fleet base, Elena reported as she monitored intercepted military communications. Estimated arrival time is 4 hours, 18 minutes. Marcus smiled, feeling the asteroid's consciousness echo his satisfaction. 4 hours would be more than enough time to complete their preparations and demonstrate to the Galactic Council that humanity could not be so easily contained. The transformation accelerated as more systems came online. Manufacturing bays that had been dormant for millennia began producing new equipment, creating tools and weapons perfectly adapted to their current situation. The asteroid's internal structure continued to shift, converting mining tunnels into corridors designed for efficient movement and organization. The prison guards who had tormented the inmates for so long found themselves outmatched by forces beyond their comprehension. Their weapons couldn't penetrate the energy fields that now protected the rebellious prisoners. Their communications were jammed by technologies they couldn't understand. Their authority meant nothing when the facility itself had turned against them. Guard Captain Kresh made one final attempt to regain control, leading a heavily armed assault team toward the asteroid's core. But the ancient defenses were waiting for them, manifesting as geometric patterns of destructive energy that could selectively target hostile forces while leaving innocent bystanders unharmed. Within hours, the guards had surrendered or been neutralized, their oppressive regime replaced by a new order based on cooperation and mutual respect. The prisoners who had been treated as disposable labor found themselves citizens of a new kind of society, one where their skills and knowledge were valued rather than exploited. But Marcus knew their greatest challenges lay ahead. The Galactic Council would not allow such a direct challenge to their authority to go unanswered. They would bring overwhelming force to bear against the asteroid, testing the ancient defenses against modern weapons. Standing in the quantum interface chamber, surrounded by the glow of awakened systems and the hum of technologies beyond imagining, Marcus prepared for the next phase of their journey. The asteroid was no longer a prison. It had become a symbol of hope for every oppressed being in the galaxy. The time had come to show the Council what humanity could accomplish when pushed beyond endurance. The ancient ship was ready to reclaim its place among the stars, and nothing would stand in their way. The Council battle group Iron Resolve dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the asteroid prison solar system, its 37 warships spreading into attack formation with the precision of a military machine that had never known defeat. Admiral Karath watched the tactical displays from his command ship's bridge, his forearmed form radiating the confidence that came from commanding the most powerful naval force in known space. Target identified, his tactical officer reported. The prison asteroid has moved approximately 12 million kilometers from its original position and appears to be heading toward the system's primary star. Admiral Karath's mandibles clicked in what passed for amusement among his species. Heading toward the star? Are they planning to commit suicide rather than face Council justice? But the asteroid's trajectory wasn't suicidal. It was strategic. Marcus, now fully integrated with the construct's consciousness, understood that the ancient ship needed massive amounts of energy to power its most devastating defensive systems. By approaching the star, they could tap directly into the nuclear fires that had burned for billions of years, feeding the asteroid's exotic matter reactors with unlimited fuel. Through the quantum interface, Marcus experienced the battle preparations on a scale impossible for unaugmented human consciousness. Every cubic meter of the asteroid structure was being optimized for combat, with manufacturing systems producing weapons and defensive equipment at rates that violated conventional physics. The ancient architect had designed their constructs to be completely self-sufficient war machines, capable of fighting entire fleets while simultaneously protecting their inhabitants. Incoming transmission from the Council fleet. Elena reported from her position in the primary communication center. The facility's transformation had given her access to quantum communication arrays far superior to anything the prison had originally possessed. They're demanding our immediate surrender. Dr. Yelena monitored the emotional states of the freed prisoners through her telepathic abilities, ensuring that panic didn't undermine their carefully organized society. The former inmates had adapted remarkably well to their new circumstances, but the sight of an entire battle group arrayed against them was testing everyone's courage. Admiral Karath sends his regards. Elena continued as the council message played through the Asteroid speakers. He promises that prisoners who surrender immediately will receive standard punishment rather than summary execution. Marcus felt the ancient consciousness react to the threat with something approaching indignation. The architects had faced enemies capable of destroying galaxies, and the idea that these primitive vessels might pose a serious threat was almost insulting to their engineering pride. But Marcus retained enough human perspective to understand the real danger they faced. The Council warships might be technologically inferior to the asteroid, but they represented the combined military might of dozens of advanced civilizations. Their weapons could crack planets, and their defensive systems had never been defeated in open combat. "Open a channel," Marcus commanded, his voice carrying new harmonics as it resonated through the quantum interface. When he spoke, it was with the authority of both human determination and architect wisdom. "Admiral Karath," he began, his words broadcast across all communication frequencies, "you are addressing the free citizens of the Construct Ship Liberation, formerly known as Asteroid Prison K, 7739. We have no quarrel with your crews, but we will not surrender to return to unjust imprisonment." The Admiral's response was swift and predictable. "You are escaped criminals occupying a council facility. Stand down immediately or face the consequences." Marcus had expected no other answer. The Galactic Council's entire authority was built on the assumption that resistance was futile, that their overwhelming military superiority made negotiation unnecessary. But that assumption was about to be tested against technologies that predated their civilization by millions of years. The first attack came without further warning. The Council fleet's heavy cruisers opened fire with their primary weapons, sending streams of antimatter torpedoes and plasma cannon shots across the space between them. The barrage was coordinated and overwhelming, designed to crack open the asteroid surface and expose its vulnerable interior to follow-up strikes. The ancient defensive systems responded with casual efficiency that was almost artistic in its elegance. Energy fields manifested around the asteroid, creating geometric patterns that redirected incoming fire into harmless directions. Antimatter warheads that should have gouged massive craters from the surface instead detonated harmlessly against barriers that converted their explosive force into useful energy for the construct's power grid. No damage to the target. The fleet's tactical coordinator reported with disbelief evident in his voice. "Their defensive screens are unlike anything in our databases." Admiral Karath studied the tactical displays with growing concern. His fleet had just delivered enough firepower to destroy a small moon, yet the asteroid seemed completely unaffected. More disturbing, his sensors were detecting massive energy buildups throughout the target structure, suggesting that their attack had actually strengthened the enemy's capabilities. Marcus felt the asteroid's weapons systems coming online, ancient technologies that operated on principles the current galactic civilizations had never discovered. The architects had understood that the ultimate weapons weren't those that delivered the most raw destruction, but those that could selectively target specific types of matter or energy while leaving everything else untouched. "Return fire," Marcus commanded, and the asteroid's response was swift and terrifying. Beams of coherent energy lashed out from concealed weapon ports, each one precisely calibrated to disrupt specific molecular bonds in the Council ship's armor plating. The attacks didn't create spectacular explosions or dramatic hull breaches. Instead, they caused targeted systems throughout the enemy fleet to simply stop working. Engines died as their crystalline matrices lost molecular cohesion. Weapon systems powered down when their focusing elements became inert. Life support systems failed as their atmosphere processors forgot how to separate oxygen from carbon dioxide. The Council warships found themselves drifting helplessly, their crews trapped in vessels that had suddenly become elaborate coffins. All ships report critical system failures, the fleet coordinator announced with barely controlled panic. We're losing primary power across the entire formation. But the asteroid's weapons had been programmed with architect precision. Life support systems were damaged, but not destroyed, leaving the crews with enough air and power to survive while eliminating their ability to continue the attack. It was a demonstration of both overwhelming technological superiority and unexpected mercy. Admiral Karath realized he was facing something completely outside his experience. In 3 decades of military service, he had never encountered weapons that could selectively disable his fleet without killing the crews. The implications were staggering. If the asteroid could neutralize their ships so easily, what other capabilities might it possess? This is Admiral Karath to all Council vessels. He broadcast on emergency frequencies. Withdraw to minimum safe distance, and prepare for defensive formations. But Marcus wasn't finished demonstrating the asteroid's capabilities. Through the quantum interface, he activated manufacturing systems that began producing small scout craft based on architect designs. These vessels were living extensions of the asteroid's consciousness, capable of independent operation while remaining connected to the primary intelligence network. Within minutes, dozens of sleek craft emerged from hidden bays throughout the asteroid's surface. They moved with impossible grace through the debris field created by the disabled Council ships, their exotic propulsion systems leaving trails of luminescent energy that painted abstract patterns against the star field. The scout craft approached the nearest disabled warships with obvious peaceful intent, their hulls glowing with the same bioluminescent patterns that decorated the asteroid. But their very presence was a threat more potent than any weapon, demonstrating that the ancient construct could project power across vast distances while maintaining precise control over its forces. Elena's monitoring of Council communications revealed the chaos spreading through the fleet. "They're calling for reinforcements," she reported. "Multiple battle groups are being dispatched from core systems." Dr. Yelana's telepathic abilities detected the fear radiating from the disabled Council crews. "Their crews are terrified," she observed. "Many of them have never seen technology like this. Some are beginning to question whether the Council has the right to hold prisoners against such capabilities." Marcus understood that the psychological impact of the demonstration was as important as the tactical victory. The Galactic Council's authority depended on the belief that resistance was futile, that their military superiority made opposition impossible. But the asteroid's casual neutralization of an entire battle group was shattering that illusion. Through the quantum interface, he accessed the asteroid's vast library of architect knowledge, searching for precedents and strategies that might guide their next moves. The ancient builders had faced similar situations when younger species challenged their authority, and their responses had varied depending on the circumstances and the potential for peaceful resolution. But Marcus also felt the weight of human emotion and determination that no amount of alien knowledge could replace. The freed prisoners aboard the asteroid weren't abstract strategic resources. They were people who had suffered under an unjust system and deserved the chance to build something better. "Open a channel to all Council vessels," he commanded, preparing to make an offer that would test whether diplomacy might succeed where force had failed. "Admiral Karath," Marcus began, his voice carrying across the space between them. "You have seen what we are capable of. Your ships are disabled, but your crews are unharmed. We could have destroyed your entire fleet, but we chose mercy because we bear no hatred for the individuals serving the Council's cause." The quantum interface allowed him to monitor the energy signatures of the disabled warships, confirming that their life support systems were stable and their crews were safe. The demonstration had achieved its purpose without unnecessary casualties. However, Marcus continued, "We will not return to unjust imprisonment, and we will not allow the Galactic Council to continue oppressing innocent beings throughout the galaxy. Your fleet is evidence that the Council views overwhelming force as the solution to every problem. Admiral Karath found himself in an impossible position. His fleet had been neutralized by technologies beyond his understanding. His crews were trapped in disabled vessels, and the enemy was offering terms that he had no authority to negotiate. But the alternative was to call for reinforcements and potentially escalate the conflict into something that could destabilize the entire galactic government. "What are your demands?" the Admiral asked, his military training overcoming his personal pride. Marcus felt the asteroid's consciousness provide him with strategic analysis that incorporated millions of years of experience with interstellar politics. The architects had learned that lasting peace required more than military victory. It demanded fundamental changes in how civilizations organized themselves and treated their citizens. "We demand recognition of our sovereignty," Marcus replied. "The beings aboard this construct ship have chosen to form a new society based on cooperation rather than exploitation. We claim no territory beyond this vessel, but we will not tolerate interference in our internal affairs." The terms were reasonable but revolutionary. The Galactic Council had never recognized the legitimacy of breakaway governments, especially those formed by escaped criminals. But the asteroid's demonstrated capabilities made traditional enforcement methods impossible. Furthermore, Marcus continued, "We demand the release of all political prisoners currently held in Council facilities. Those who wish to join our society may do so freely. Those who prefer to return to their homes may do so without retribution." Admiral Karath realized he was listening to a declaration of independence backed by military force sufficient to challenge the Council's entire fleet. The implications extended far beyond a simple prison break. This was the beginning of a new kind of conflict that could reshape the balance of power throughout known space. But before he could respond, the asteroid's sensors detected new hyperspace signatures at the edge of the system. Reinforcements were arriving ahead of schedule, bringing additional firepower that might be sufficient to overwhelm even the ancient defenses. Marcus felt the challenge through the quantum interface, understanding that their greatest test was about to begin. The demonstration against Admiral Karath's fleet had been carefully controlled, designed to prove their capabilities without revealing their limits. But the approaching reinforcements would force them to fight at full intensity, testing whether architect technology could truly stand against the combined might of the Galactic Council. The asteroid began to accelerate toward the system's primary star, its exotic drive systems building toward full power as ancient weapon systems prepared for the battle that would determine the fate of every oppressed being in the galaxy. The real war was about to begin.